This Family Life News podcast is made possible by the support of listeners like you.
Next on the 5 o'clock report.
These are historic, long-time rivalries between different groups.
He's dead, he's gone.
It's a very delicate subject, but we should put everything out there and let the people decide it.
Washington is spending way too much money.
Now, let's go to the newsroom.
Faith and fighting. Good afternoon. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm Mark Webster. A new Middle East flare-up with major religious overtones. Christianity, Islam, and Judaism all intertwined in a new hotspot in the world's most trouble-prone region. That's a Syrian TV reporter live on the air when an Israeli airstrike hit Damascus as the IDF hit Syrian government buildings in retaliation for attacks by multiple Syrian factions on the country's Druze population. Fox's man in the Middle East, Trey Yingst, says the fighting is all along religious and ethnic lines.
Sectarian violence swelled here days ago between Sunni Bedouin tribes who are backed by the Syrian government and Druze factions. These clashes including kidnappings and street fighting.
The U.S. has been trying to calm the situation, which threatens to unravel Washington's efforts to encourage a stable Syrian government. Secretary of State Marco Rubio.
These are historic, long-time rivalries between different groups in the southwest of Syria, Bedouins, the Druze community, and it led to an unfortunate situation and a misunderstanding, it looks like, between the Israeli side and the Syrian side.
Now, the Druze originated in 11th century Egypt as an offshoot of Islam. While the Druze have historically had peaceful relations with Middle East Christians and do share some common beliefs, the deity of Christ is not one of them. Now, next to Washington, where there's a perturbed president. During one of his frequent ad-lib Oval Office news conferences today, President Trump had plenty of complaints to air out. One was aimed at fellow Republicans who've joined the call for more disclosures from the Jeffrey Epstein evidence files. Says Trump,
It's just a subject. He's dead, he's gone, and all it is the Republicans, certain Republicans got duped by the Democrats, and they're following a Democrat playbook.
That's not how House Speaker Mike Johnson sees things.
It's a very delicate subject, but we should put everything out there and let the people decide it.
Trump also had another rant on Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell. Asked whether he was going to try to fire him, Trump hedged.
He's doing a lousy job, but no, I'm not talking about that. I don't rule out anything, but I think it's highly unlikely.
He told reporters he actually asked other Republicans whether he should try to remove Powell.
I said, what do you think? Almost every one of them said I should.
Trump's been highly critical of Powell for a long time now for not moving fast enough to lower interest rates. Next to Capitol Hill, the Senate may vote before the night is out on a controversial rescissions bill that would yank back over $9 billion in funding for USAID and public broadcasting. It got to the full Senate after Vice President J.D. Vance broke a 50-all tie yesterday. 3 Republicans breaking ranks, including Alaska Republican Senator Lisa Murkowski, speaking out in favor of NPR.
The entity, the program that provides for so much support, particularly for those in rural places.
Missouri Rep. Jason Smith chairs the House Ways and Means Committee. He tells Fox News,
Washington is spending way too much money on wasteful programs, and this rescissions is just one step in the right direction.
A final vote could come tonight or possibly tomorrow. New York Attorney General Tish James spearheading a nationwide effort to ban ICE agents from wearing masks when they're making arrests.
James is leading a coalition of 20 other attorneys general and urging Congress to pass legislation forbidding ICE agents from hiding their faces and requiring them to clearly identify themselves. The coalition highlights a disturbing pattern of masked agents, often in plain clothes, pulling people off the streets in unmarked cars. The attorneys general argue this sows confusion and fear and makes it difficult for people to determine whether a kidnapping is taking place or report misconduct. They're calling for Congress to act to ensure ICE is held to basic standards of transparency, accountability, and respect for civil rights.
That's Christian Marks reporting. Multiple states seeing a rise in coronavirus cases. The CDC says COVID rates are growing in 25 states right now, mainly in the South, Southeast, and the West Coast, with a spike part of a summer rise. Activity nationwide, though, is still considered low. One other health note for you. Having trouble getting to sleep these days? New research suggests certain exercises might be better than counting sheep to try to catch some winks.
Research published in the British Medical Journal found yoga, tai chi, walking, or jogging all had the biggest benefit to improving sleep quality and reducing insomnia. The study suggests exercise could be an alternative to conventional insomnia treatments like drugs and therapy. Yoga in particular led to nearly 2 extra hours of sleep time.
That's CBS's Michael George. Still to come here on the 5 o'clock report, another day of major mugginess and storminess, more trouble in an area school district, and highlights from today's Real Answers feature, which focused on the growing issue of grown kids failing to launch.
I'm Kevin Williams, and here is your Family Life regional weather forecast. A much fresher, cleaner, drier air mass arrives on Friday, producing much more comfortable weather as we head into the start of the upcoming weekend. In the meantime, variable amounts of cloudiness, steamy tonight. Tomorrow, a couple of showers and heavy thunderstorms crossing the area. Low temps tonight near 70, highs tomorrow in the 80s. On Friday, much less humid, cooler, morning clouds, then sunshine. High temperatures Friday mainly in the 70s.
Thank you very much, Kevin. Checking the stories making news where you live across New York and Pennsylvania. Weather is one of those stories. Heat advisories for portions of upstate New York. A flood watch for the eastern 2/3 of Pennsylvania this afternoon. WGRZ meteorologist Dan Russell in Buffalo says, watch out for those pop-up storms if you happen to be near one.
Really hit and miss, really spotty in terms of who gets what, and there'll be many folks that don't get anything. But where you do get hit, it could produce some drenching downpours here.
And we've already seen plenty of those this afternoon on radar across both New York and Pennsylvania. We'll check in again with our Kevin Williams before this newscast is done. A trial date set for 8 corrections officers in central New York accused in the beating death of inmate Robert Brooks. Jury selection starts October 6th. That trial expected to take about a month. The assault at the Marcy Correctional Facility was caught on camera last December. A potential nuclear power plant causing a buzz in Chautauqua County, New York. A public meeting held last night on repurposing the former NRG power plant in Dunkirk. The mayor says could be a much-needed boost for a dying city, but adds,
"We will not move forward with any proposals unless it is shaped by and supported by this community."
The mayor says construction of a nuke plant would take 6 years start to finish. Last month, the governor, Kathy Hochul, announced the state will be building the country's first advanced nuclear power plant in more than a decade. That now shuttered NRG plant in Dunkirk has been closed down for almost a decade. A Western New York school superintendent on administrative leave, though no one's saying exactly why. The Oakfield, Alabama Central School District Board met in special session and placed Superintendent John Fuskas on administrative leave effective immediately. No reason disclosed, though the move does come a few months after a coach for the district was removed over allegations of inappropriate conduct. It's unclear whether that might be connected in any way to the superintendent's removal. Robert Banzer's been appointed to acting superintendent. A 175-year-old church demolished in Dansville, New York. The former St. Patrick's Church stood in that Livingston County community since 1851. Paul Constantine with the Dansville Historical Society says that church was a major influence in many people's lives.
People would come and they'd love to talk to you about what happened to them and their family in this church. And it was a major event for them. It's a major part of their life. And it's gone.
The Catholic Church started collapsing over the weekend, leaving the building in ruins. No word yet on what Dansville officials hope to do with that site where that church once stood. All right, up next now, highlights from today's edition of Real Answers. I had a chance to speak with licensed mental health counselor Christopher Anderson about failure to launch. That's the growing issue of grown kids taking longer and longer to leave the nest and head out on their own. He says the reasons are many, but 2 big ones are addictive video games and modern economics.
There's just really a lot going on. A lot of changes in our society have really been taking place over the past few decades. You look at what's going on in our government, you go on world society with, economies and trying to get jobs back. And you look at what has historically happened over the years, especially in poor rural areas, such as what we find a lot of in our listening area. The jobs just aren't out there that they used to be. Now, that doesn't mean, of course, that is in any way, shape, or form meant to encourage folks to not leave the nest. Of course, they still need to, but it may not be quite as easy as it used to be. And a lot of times, the jobs that are available may not be the best paying jobs. But again, that still doesn't address the issue of why are more people hanging around longer. And that even happened in the insurance industry when suddenly the regulations became such that children that are in their early and mid-20s can remain on the parents' insurance policies until, age 25 or whatever it may be there. So there's been societal changes, and not to mention other things, such as different trends in society, primarily ones that are not very good. Just so much to unpack.
Yeah, for sure. As a parent, we've lived through that whole insurance thing where you keep the kids on there, I think, till 25. That is a factor. We were sitting here and think about the kids staying home way past high school graduation or even college. You maybe have the stereotype of kids sitting there in the basement just playing video games all day. Is that the sort of thing you see there in real life as well?
Oh, goodness, yes. And I am no stranger to making it known that I really do not promote the usage of video games, even a little bit, quite honestly. Mm-hmm. They're very habit forming. And I have yet to meet folks who say, oh, yeah, I might play, a half hour a week of video games. I've not yet met a person that'll say that. Usually folks that are heavily involved in video gaming, they're playing several hours every single day or several hours at least every single week, if not more.
Yeah.
So the reality is, folks are having a harder time setting boundaries with their teenage and 20-something children and really setting some expectations which are not only healthy, but they're very much godly. I mean, we are encouraged to get out and encouraged to work and to be, obviously be used by God and to find out what is it that God has called us to do in our life and to develop that. So the biggest thing is I'm finding it that more and more parents are having a hard time setting those boundaries and actually encouraging their children, taking the steps to get them out of the house and get them in more of an independent role. It's just becoming harder. I think children that are getting out and going to college have a little bit easier time because they're kind of like that, those college years are a bit of a introduction to the real world, so to speak.
Trial separation almost, yeah.
Exactly. Parents are having a hard time just really pushing them out, which is what needs to happen at times.
Mm-hmm. You're listening to Real Answers. I'm Mark Webster, along with licensed mental health counselor Christopher Anderson. Today we're talking about that failure to launch syndrome. Obviously, there were no video games back in Bible times, but Scripture certainly does address the general principles here, doesn't it?
It sure does. It absolutely does. And parents need to be active in monitoring their children's usage of their free time, of their leisure time as well, in preparation, believe it or not, for getting them to launch so they have a successful launch once they're out of school and ready to get out into the real working world. And again, with their kids, earlier, when they're much younger than 18 years old, get them used to a set of expectations, onto a schedule when they can start working. Get them into a routine, because routine and expectation not only helps them to develop, it also gives them a sense of accomplishment. It helps to increase their confidence and their ability to learn new things. And that can happen at a very young age. That does not have to be a teenage thing.
That's licensed mental health counselor Christopher Anderson on today's Real Answers about failure to launch, part one of a two-part series. You can hear that and all of our Family Life original news features at Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, or FamilyLife.org. This is the 5 o'clock report on Family Life.
There's a popular myth that 80% of all workers hate their jobs. Hi, I'm Rob West with your Faith and Finance Minute. That figure might seem true, but the real issue might not be the job itself. A Gallup poll found that 50% of people who left a job did so because of their manager. The biggest complaints? Playing favorites and creating a toxic environment. You may not be able to change your boss, but you can change your mindset. Colossians 3:23 reads, "Do your work heartily as unto the Lord rather than unto men." When work becomes an act of worship, everything changes. God sees your faithfulness and honors those who serve him, whether in the workplace, at school, or at home. And when the Lord is your true boss, you'll always work under grace, not fear. Get biblical answers to your financial questions in the Faith Fi community. Download Faith Fi, Faith and Finance in your app store or visit faithfi.com.
Coming up here on the 5 o'clock report, it started with a stick of gum and turned into a true lifesaver. That story just ahead.
I'm Kevin Williams, and here is your Family Life regional weather forecast. Through the day on Thursday, we'll be residing in a steamy tropical air mass, and the atmosphere will be ripe for producing scattered showers and thunderstorms that can bring drenching localized downpours. That said, a much fresher, cleaner, drier air mass arrives on Friday, clearing the skies, cooling the air, and producing much more comfortable weather as we head into the start of the upcoming weekend. In the meantime, Variable amounts of cloudiness and steamy tonight. Tomorrow, a couple of showers and heavy thunderstorms crossing the area. Low temps tonight near 70, highs tomorrow in the 80s. On Friday, much less humid, cooler. Morning clouds, then sunshine. High temperatures Friday, mainly in the 70s.
All right, thank you, Kevin. Sure is steamy out there today. Finally, at 5, it was 2013. Brian Martindale of Bay City, Michigan, was almost out of gum. See, he'd recently quit smoking, so gum had become his substitute. Worried about running out, he ran down to the corner store. And that's where he saw a newspaper article about a local 10-year-old girl in a princess dress in need of a life-saving kidney donation. Within months, Martindale became the Prince Charming for young Jessica, donating a kidney to her. But that's just the start of the story. In 2022, slowed down by a shoulder injury from a career as a painter, he then founded the nonprofit Kidneys for Kids.
My wife and I had talked in the years prior about, we watched Jessica grow up. Jessica was a stranger to us. Now she's like a daughter to my wife and I. I found out there were 2,000 other children. I didn't realize that until I had this time off. I was looking at what can we do to further living kidney donation.
Now, that led to a nationwide program called Driving for Life. And driving a donated car, Martindale has now logged over 25,000 miles, enough to circle the earth, all to raise awareness and connect donors with kids needing kidneys. An amazing story of stick-to-itiveness that began with a stick of gum. And that's the world we live in for Wednesday, July 16th, 2025. Thank you again for joining us. I'm Mark Webster, Family Life News.
Thank you for listening to this Family Life News podcast. If you've been encouraged by what you've heard, please share it with others and click the subscribe button to automatically receive future episodes. Family Life is a listener-supported ministry. Podcasts like this are made possible by your financial partnership. Find out more at familylife.org.